A young millionaire married a poor waitress, but she revealed her secret at the wedding, and everyone gasped. Adrian was born into an ordinary family that lived in a small town. From early childhood, the boy dreamed of becoming rich and famous one day. His parents and older brothers laughed at him. "The Sotelo family has never been wealthy," his father said. "We are used to working hard, not deceiving people to make money." "But being rich doesn't mean exploiting others and earning money dishonestly," protested the boy. "You're too naive, son," his mother replied. "You don't know life yet." Adrian didn't know how to respond. He was hurt that his parents didn't support him, but he didn't give up. His dream continued to burn brightly in his heart. In the evenings, when Adrian went to bed, he closed his eyes and imagined a large, spacious house with a pool and a shady garden where he would one day live. The boy dreamed of the travels he could afford when he started making a lot of money. In school, Adrian was always one of the top students because he had a goal and ambition. He diligently completed his homework and always tried to learn more than what was covered in the school curriculum. He often stayed up late studying instead of going out to play soccer with his peers. His parents were always surprised by their son's zeal, and when he announced that he was going to apply to a university in the capital, they couldn't believe their ears. "Are you serious, Adrian? Do you think you can handle it?" his mother asked anxiously. "I have no doubt I will succeed," Adrian replied firmly. His mother just shook her head when she heard this. Everything happened just as Adrian had said. After finishing school, he enrolled in a prestigious university to study business technology. During his studies, Adrian actively participated in various team projects, competitions, and startup studies, which allowed him to gain valuable experience and knowledge. He was never shy about approaching well-known businessmen who came to the university to give lectures and asking them questions. This helped him gain expert opinions and understand various nuances of doing business. Additionally, he made useful connections and acquaintances. Many company owners were attracted to his ambition, youthful energy, and potential, so they invited him to join their firms in advance. Adrian's father, mother, and older brothers were surprised when the young man told them about this and advised him to accept one of the offers. However, as usual, Adrian had his own view of the situation. After graduating from university, he decided not to follow the traditional path. He didn't join any of the companies that invited him. Instead, he chose to take certain risks and start his own business. To do this, he immersed himself in studying computer technology and chose to create an online school for programming, website creation, and financial management. During his studies, Adrian often received cash prizes when he took first place in competitions and contests. He gave part of the money to his parents and saved the rest for the future. Now, the young man involved several university friends in the project and invested all his savings into developing the online school. The team worked day and night, perfecting the product and preparing it for launch. When everything was ready, Adrian launched virtual advertisements. Initially, his offer did not attract much interest, but thanks to the marketing strategy he studied at the university, his startup began to gain popularity. Many people liked the idea of learning technology at any convenient time without leaving home, so the number of students at the school grew daily. A year after the launch, Adrian's online school became one of the most popular virtual platforms on the market. This attracted active attention from major investors who offered the young man significant investments for further development of the project. With new opportunities, Adrian was able to expand the team and start developing additional courses, which were launched within a few months. Furthermore, he managed to attract collaboration from leading world experts, greatly increasing the platform's popularity. Soon, the young man earned his first million. Thanks to these achievements, Adrian gained recognition from the business community. He was invited as a speaker to various prestigious conferences and forums where he shared his experience and inspired other entrepreneurs. After one such meeting, Adrian felt hungry and decided to have lunch at a cozy restaurant next to the business center. When he entered the restaurant, he was greeted by a pleasant atmosphere, soft lighting, paintings on the walls, quiet music, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. At that hour, he was the only customer in the restaurant. Adrian chose a table by a large stained glass window, sat down, and began to browse the menu. A few minutes later, a waitress approached him, a beautiful young woman with big brown eyes and a friendly smile. She had a pleasant scent of delicate floral perfume. The badge on her white shirt read that her name was Angela Ramirez. "Good afternoon," the girl greeted the guest. "Have you decided what to order?" Adrian unexpectedly felt his heart beat a little faster. The girl standing before him had an inexplicable charm, and he wanted to learn more about her. "Good afternoon, Angela. I would like a cup of cappuccino and to try your signature seafood pasta." "Sure. Your dish will be ready shortly," the girl nodded and walked away from the businessman's table. 10 minutes later, Angela brought Adrian's order and placed it in front of the young man. "Your seafood pasta and cappuccino." "Enjoy your meal," she said cheerfully. Adrian thanked Angela and started his lunch. When he finished, he noticed that the girl was standing at the bar with a book in her hands. Sensing his gaze, Angela quickly closed the book and, putting it aside, hurried over to him. "Did you enjoy everything?" she asked. Adrian nodded with a smile. "Yes, if you could, please bring me the bill," he asked politely. Angela returned with a small leather folder in her hands, placed it in front of the young man, and walked away. Adrian paid the bill, leaving a large tip for the girl. Rising from the table, he walked towards the exit, trying to catch Angela's eye again. She was once again standing at the bar with the book. Lifting her head, she smiled at Adrian. "Thank you for choosing us," Angela said. "We look forward to seeing you again." Adrian slowed his pace and, nodding, dared to ask, "Pardon my curiosity, but what are you reading?" "It's a documentary novel about travels, based on the author's true story. He writes about places, customs, and cultures that are new to me." Angela's response piqued Adrian's interest. "That's great. I love traveling too." He hesitated for a moment, thinking that due to her job and relatively young age, Angela had probably never traveled anywhere and only read about distant journeys. Adrian also wondered if the girl recognized him. His face often appeared on the covers of business magazines. But she might not be interested in the business world, Adrian reasoned. He wanted to remain unrecognized. Deep down, he always feared that girls would approach him because of his money. "What countries would you like to visit?" Adrian finally asked as casually as possible. "Oh, I've long dreamed of visiting New Zealand. My father told me a lot about this country," Angela replied, and her gaze suddenly became very sad. Adrian thought that with her salary, she would probably have to save for such a trip for a long time. He had once been to New Zealand and was enchanted by the green country. However, he didn't mention this. "That's a wonderful dream," Adrian said instead. Angela nodded. "They filmed The Hobbit there. It was one of my favorite books as a child." "So, you loved reading even when you were a child?" Angela nodded. "Strangely enough, it was my father who instilled a love of reading in me. He always worked a lot, but when he came home early, he would always read to me before bed. He introduced me to the most famous stories and fairy tales in the world." Adrian smiled. What the girl had told him seemed very sweet. He wanted to continue the conversation, but he didn't want to be intrusive. Adrian politely said goodbye and left the restaurant, carrying with him the image of Angela. He thought about her all evening and firmly decided to return to the same restaurant the next day specifically to see her again. However, to his great disappointment, Angela had a day off. Adrian had dinner and went home, deciding to try his luck the next day. This time he was lucky. When he entered the restaurant, Angela greeted him with a sweet smile. Adrian chose a daytime visit to ensure there would be fewer people in the establishment. His calculation was correct. All the tables were empty, and Angela was once again sitting with a book. Adrian went to the same spot as before, and the girl approached him to take his order. This time, the young man asked her to recommend a tasty dish, and Angela suggested spinach pie. "I fully trust your taste," Adrian smiled. And please bring me a cup of cappuccino like last time. Angela nodded and walked away from his table. Adrian took several deep breaths to calm his heartbeat and pretended to be intently observing what was happening outside. In reality, the young man was desperately trying to come up with a topic for further conversation with Angela. When the waitress returned with his order, he couldn't think of anything better than to ask if she had finished reading the travel book. Angela nodded, saying that she had read the novel in one go. "What are you reading now?" Adrian asked, adjusting a napkin on the table. "Oh, it's a very interesting travelogue about a trip to Japan. I didn't know before that the Japanese are so clean. They wash the streets with shampoo." Adrian laughed. Angela's face suddenly took on a worried expression. "Your food will get cold if we continue our lovely conversation," she remarked. "I don't want to disturb you." Adrian nodded. "Then promise me you'll give me your phone number so we can meet and talk when you're free from work." Angela smiled and nodded. "Sure," she agreed and, pulling a pencil and notebook from her pocket, quickly wrote down her number on a blank sheet of paper. Tearing it out, she handed the note to Adrian. He nodded and put it in his pocket. After lunch, the young man paid, again leaving Angela a large tip, and politely said goodbye before leaving. That evening, he sent her a message suggesting they meet somewhere over the weekend. Angela mentioned she hadn't been in nature for a long time, so Adrian invited her to the Central City Park, which resembled a real forest. Tall trees grew there, and in the center was a fairly large pond where swans and ducks swam. Angela said it was her favorite park and happily agreed to Adrian's invitation. On Sunday, towards evening, the young people met at the park entrance and strolled along the cozy paths. They gradually found more and more topics for conversation, getting to know each other better. Angela turned out to be not only a sweet and beautiful girl, but also an intelligent, well-read, and determined person with big dreams. Adrian found himself enjoying every moment spent with her. "Do you believe in happy coincidences, Angela?" Adrian suddenly asked. "It depends on what you mean," the girl replied evasively. "I mean our meeting. I'm so glad that the first time we met, I chose to have lunch at your restaurant." Angela blushed and nodded. "Yes, this coincidence led to a pleasant acquaintance and engaging conversations. I really enjoy talking with you." "Me too," admitted Adrian. "And I would like to see you again." Angela smiled upon hearing these words. "Why not?" she shrugged. Her response encouraged and inspired Adrian. They continued walking in the park for a long time, and Angela asked what Adrian did for a living. The young man realized that she still didn't know he was a famous businessman and millionaire. "I run my own business," was all he said. Adrian didn't want to talk about work. He wished that in his and Angela's little world, there would be only pleasant conversations about travels, books, movies, and other things they both found interesting. The next time, the young man decided to take Angela to a special place she had never been. He spent a long time studying recommendations online and even asked several friends and acquaintances for advice. He was recommended to visit a retro cinema called Clouds, located in an old but very atmospheric building. Adrian liked this idea and decided to invite Angela there. The young man didn't tell the girl where they were going, only saying it was a surprise. "Do you trust me, Angela?" he asked with a smile over the phone, to which the girl replied affirmatively. "I'm sure this evening will be memorable for you," added Adrian. In the evening, he picked Angela up from work. He had to wait a few minutes for her to come out of the restaurant. Adrian didn't recognize Angela immediately. She wore a long silver dress adorned with sparkling sequins. Her hair was curled and styled to one side, decorated with a glittering hairpin. Long earrings with butterfly silhouettes dangled from her ears. The girl looked stunning. Most captivating were her eyes, which shone like two stars framed by long lashes. Adrian caught his breath and didn't know what to say at first. The young man helped Angela into the car, returned to his seat, and finally exhaled. "You look exceptionally beautiful tonight. Like an angel descended from heaven." Angela blushed and thanked Adrian. "So, where are we going?" she asked playfully. "I hope it's not a football match." Adrian laughed. "No, not tonight. We're headed somewhere special and magical, worthy of your outfit." With that, he started the car and drove Angela to the planned destination. He had heard that the Cloud Cinema was a unique space where each visitor could experience an unforgettable journey through time. Adrian had booked tickets in advance and arranged a small surprise for Angela with the theater's administration. He was looking forward to a special and pleasant evening with her. The cinema building was located in the heart of the city and attracted attention with its whimsical architecture. Tall arched windows and marble columns added charm and sophistication. When they entered, Angela was struck by the theater's atmosphere. Neon signs glowed everywhere, old movie posters hung on the walls, and cozy vintage seats gave visitors the feeling they had stepped into the mid-20th century. The theater's lobby was spacious and slightly mysterious, thanks to the dim pinkish lighting. The floors were laid with black and white mosaic tiles, and the walls were adorned with mirrors in ornate frames, portraits of famous actors, and photographs from classic films. One wall featured a huge handwritten schedule of showings. Nearby stood antique ticket vending machines, adding a special flair to the cinema. "This is incredible. I've always dreamed of visiting a place like this," Angela said to Adrian. "I'm glad you like it," the young man replied. While Angela admired everything around her, Adrian gently reminded her that the film would start soon. They went into the hall and sat in plush seats in front of a large screen. The lights dimmed, and the credits rolled. The film was black and white, very funny, and romantic. During the viewing, Adrian gently took Angela's hand and intertwined his fingers with hers. She smiled at him in the dark. Everything seemed magical, and the young couple didn't want the film to end. The love story that unfolded on the screen deeply moved Angela. When the film ended and the lights came back on, Adrian suggested they explore the cinema. "Shall we check out the other halls? I heard there's a small museum with interesting exhibits about the history of cinema." Angela eagerly agreed. The Cloud Cinema had several halls, each decorated in its unique style, reflecting a different decade in cinema history. The hall housing the Cinema Museum was adorned with vintage lamps and golden patterns on the walls, while the ceiling was designed like a starry sky, with clouds made of cotton hanging on thin strings. As they strolled through the cinema, Angela suddenly saw a poster with her own image in one of the halls. It was black and white, and she looked like a retro actress in it. Angela froze, unable to believe her eyes. "But how is this possible?" she wondered. "This was my surprise for you," Adrian admitted. "I took one of your photos from social media, generated a retro image, and then arranged with the administration to hang this poster in the hall. I hope you like it." The young man felt a bit embarrassed, anxious about Angela's reaction. "It's amazing," Angela exclaimed and kissed Adrian on the cheek. He blushed and smiled, feeling very happy. Then they went up to the rooftop, where they could sit in the fresh air and admire the stars. Holding hands, they gazed at the city's evening lights for a long time. The evening at the cinema was remembered by both as something magical and atmospheric. Adrian and Angela continued to see each other, and their relationship grew stronger and deeper. They spent a lot of time together, talking about various topics, visiting interesting places, and enjoying each other's company. Adrian gradually realized that Angela had become not just a friend, but someone he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. One evening, as they were walking through the park with the stars shining brightly above, Adrian suddenly felt it was time to confess his feelings to Angela. He gently stopped her and sat her down on a bench by the fountain, then sat down beside her. "Angela, you know, over the time we've known each other, I've come to realize something." The young man paused for a moment, and the girl looked at him intently, waiting for him to continue. The fountain softly whispered, and the water droplets sparkled in the light of the lanterns. "You've become a very important part of my life. I've never met anyone like you. You're like a ray of light, beautiful, kind, and sincere. I love you." Upon hearing this, Angela couldn't hold back her tears. "Adrian, I love you too. You've made my life brighter and happier." The young couple embraced, feeling warmth and joy from their mutual feelings. They sat on the bench for a long time, breathing in each other's scent, and then Adrian leaned in and kissed Angela. Their kiss lasted a long time, and the young man realized he wanted it to never end. Afterward, Adrian walked Angela home and promised to text her the next day. When he got home, the young man was so excited from the meeting that he couldn't sleep for a long time. When dawn broke outside the window, Adrian firmly decided that he wanted to propose to Angela. But this moment must be special and unforgettable, he muttered to himself before falling asleep. The next day, Adrian began planning the details. He needed to think of a place where he would say the cherished words to Angela and choose a ring for her. After much deliberation, Adrian decided to propose in the very park where they had first walked together. It was a favorite place for the young couple, symbolizing their relationship. The young man knew that Angela loved traveling, so he decided to give her a small miracle. He arranged for a hot air balloon ride so they could rise into the air together, and he would propose to her among the clouds. This idea excited him so much that Adrian could hardly believe it was really happening. The next day, the young man went to the jeweler and ordered an exquisite ring with a pink gemstone in the shape of a heart. The craftsman said it would be ready in a week. Adrian went home and with bated breath began to wait. He was very anxious and hoped that everything would go perfectly. Finally, the day arrived when Adrian invited Angela for a walk, telling her he wanted to spend a special evening with her. When he brought Angela to their favorite park, she noticed a bright red hot air balloon in the distance and suggested they walk over to admire it up close. As they approached, the mustached older man in the basket waved them over warmly and invited them to join him. Angela couldn't believe her eyes. "Is he really going to take us for a ride?" she asked in amazement. Adrian just smiled and nodded. He took her hand and led her to the balloon. As they climbed into the basket, it began to slowly ascend. Angela watched in awe as the ground gradually receded beneath them. Adrian, however, was focused only on the velvet box containing the ring in his pocket. When they reached a sufficient height, he gently turned her towards him. "Angela, there's something I'd like to tell you," he confessed. "Then tell me," she smiled, gazing into her beloved's eyes, waiting for his words. "You know how much you mean to me. You've changed my life, making it better and filling it with new meaning. I realize that I want to be with you forever." With that, Adrian pulled the box from his pocket and opened it. "Angela, will you marry me?" Angela was taken by surprise, and tears of joy welled up in her eyes. "Yes, Adrian, of course," she answered with a trembling voice without a moment's hesitation. The young man slipped the ring onto her finger and hugged her tightly. The couple was on cloud nine, both literally and figuratively. The very next day, Adrian and Angela began preparing for the wedding. They both wanted the day to be special and memorable forever. Together, they planned every detail to create the perfect celebration. The first task was choosing a venue. Angela and Adrian decided the ceremony should be held outdoors, surrounded by nature. They found a beautiful restaurant with a large veranda overlooking a lake. It was the perfect setting for the romantic atmosphere they wanted to create. Angela decided to make the invitations by hand. She chose pastel-colored paper and decorated it with floral patterns. She attached dried lily-of-the-valley flowers to each card, symbolizing love and devotion. "Dear friends, we would be delighted to see you at our wedding," Angela wrote in her beautiful handwriting. "How lovely!" Adrian marveled when he saw her work. Angela blushed and hugged him. "I want everything to be special," she replied. Angela had few friends in the city, so most of the guests would be Adrian's friends. "Finally, I'll get to meet your parents," Adrian said. "And I'll meet yours," Angela smiled. They had talked about this for a long time, but both of their parents lived far away. The wedding would be the occasion for them to come together. On the weekend, Angela took her best friends to choose a wedding dress. They visited several boutiques and finally chose a stunning silk dress with a lace back and a long train. Angela also bought long white gloves. Adrian also found his outfit, opting for a classic black tuxedo with a white shirt and a bow tie. He looked stylish and festive in it. For decorating the restaurant's veranda, where the ceremony would take place, Angela and Adrian chose delicate pastel tones, pink, white, and green. Floral arches and garlands of pink and gold lights created a truly magical atmosphere. The menu for the wedding banquet included a variety of exquisite dishes. The highlight of the evening was to be the large wedding cake, consisting of several tiers with figurines of the bride and groom on top. Adrian paid special attention to the music that would accompany the celebration. He hired a band to play beautiful romantic ballads. And later in the night, a DJ will come, Adrian told Angela. The younger crowd will be able to dance to their heart's content. On the wedding day, everything went perfectly. The bride looked stunning in her white dress with a veil and beautifully styled hair. The groom was nervous but happy. At the altar, Adrian and Angela said "I do," and the priest pronounced them husband and wife. As soon as this happened, the young man kissed his wife, and his parents approached them to congratulate them. Unfortunately, Angela's parents missed this part of the celebration. Their plane was delayed due to bad weather. Her mother called, almost in tears, to inform her. Angela tried to console her, saying that she and Adrian were eagerly awaiting their arrival. Guests gathered on the veranda, enjoying the beautiful weather, the stunning view, the drinks, and the pleasant conversation. The newlyweds received congratulations and chatted with old friends and close relatives. Everyone was happy for the newlyweds, who seemed like the perfect couple. The celebration was in full swing when Angela's father and mother appeared on the veranda. The young wife hurried to them. She hugged her mom and dad and quickly started telling them about the ring exchange ceremony. They were very happy for their daughter, and her mother even cried from the overwhelming emotions. "I want to introduce you to Adrian," said Angela, and led her parents to the group of Adrian's friends he was chatting with at that moment. As they approached, Adrian noticed Angela and smiled warmly at her. He excused himself from his friends and walked over to his young wife. "Adrian, my parents finally made it," Angela said joyfully and introduced her father and mother. Adrian greeted them politely. "It's very nice to meet you," he added. However, Angela's parents didn't respond. The girl looked at them in astonishment and noticed they had gone very pale. Her father even clutched his heart. Adrian didn't understand what was happening. Angela apologized and led her parents to a table with drinks and snacks. After seating them in comfortable chairs, she sat down next to them, feeling the anxiety and fear in the air. "Dad, Mom, what's wrong?" Angela asked. "Why did you change your expressions when you saw Adrian?" Her father and mother exchanged glances. "Sweetheart, you see." Her father began resolutely after clearing his throat. "This man is not right for you." Angela couldn't believe what she was hearing. "What?" she rasped. "But why? What's wrong with him?" "We don't know what kind of person he is, but we can tell you one thing," her mother said with a heavy sigh. "You need to stay away from him." Angela felt dizzy. "But he's my husband," she exclaimed. "And I love him." She helplessly looked from her father to her mother and back again, but they avoided her gaze. "Please, explain something." Angela couldn't hold back anymore. "This man destroyed our lives," her father suddenly blurted out. His face changed. Now he was looking directly into his daughter's eyes, and his voice was filled with fury. "But how?" the girl barely managed to utter. Angela's father told her the whole truth about Adrian. The girl turned pale, and tears welled up in her eyes. At that very moment, the master of ceremonies picked up the microphone and invited the newlyweds to the stage to give a speech. Adrian approached the table where Angela and her parents were sitting and took her hand. "Shall we go?" he asked, looking at his wife with concern. Adrian could see that something had happened, but had no idea what it was. Yes, of course, Angela replied in a weak voice. Hand in hand, the couple walked onto the stage to warm applause from the guests. Adrian took the microphone first and began talking about how he first saw Angela in a restaurant. "This girl made my heart race in an instant," he said, looking at his wife with love and tenderness. However, Angela was lost in her own thoughts and seemed not to notice. Adrian grew worried but continued to speak. When he finished, he handed the microphone to Angela. She took it without looking at her husband, and her hand was as cold as ice. "First of all, I want to thank each of you for coming to our wedding," Angela began her speech. The guests responded with applause. Despite everything, the young husband looked at Angela with love and support, unaware of what she was about to say. "What Adrian said is true. When he first saw me, I was working as a waitress in a restaurant," she continued. "But it wasn't always like that." The groom's guests began to murmur in surprise. "In fact, until I was 22, I never worked because..." Angela paused for a moment to catch her breath and finally said, "I was the daughter of a millionaire." The room gasped. Adrian looked at his wife in disbelief. The guests froze in anticipation. "Yes, it's true," Angela nodded. "My father owned a chain of computer technology schools that successfully educated children and adults in different parts of the capital. I always had everything I wanted: the best clothes, the opportunity to visit fashionable places in the city, and travel. I didn't need to work and spent my time as I pleased. But one day, a young businessman appeared, opening an online school where you could learn the same things as in my father's schools, but without having to go anywhere. His platform became so popular that my father went bankrupt. He closed his business, left in debt, and I went to work as a waitress to earn a living. That's my story, which I wanted to share with you." With these words, Angela handed the microphone back to the host and, apologizing to the room, walked to the exit, brushing away her tears. Adrian was stunned by what he heard. He wanted to follow his wife, but it was as if he was glued to the spot. The guests felt extremely awkward. Everything that had seemed so perfect had collapsed in an instant. Adrian finally snapped out of it and, without looking at anyone, rushed to the exit. He found Angela by the lake. She was sitting on a bench, crying bitterly. Adrian approached and, sitting down beside her, took her hand. "Why didn't you ever tell me about this?" he asked quietly. Angela didn't pull her hand away, but it remained cold. "I didn't even realize it was you. My parents recognized you today. They saw your face in magazines and told me. I always considered you an enemy, and now, it turns out you're my husband." Adrian didn't know what to say. He felt dizzy and was terrified of losing Angela. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea my business ruined anyone's life." "Of course you didn't know," Angela replied through her tears in a flat voice. "But can this really come between us?" Adrian asked, trying to look into her eyes. "I love you and want to be with you, darling." Angela sobbed. I don't know, Adrian. I need to be alone and think about everything." The young man just nodded in response. He understood that a profound transformation was happening in his wife's heart and she needed to be left alone. Angela and her parents called a taxi and left. Adrian stayed to see off the guests. He looked lost and shattered. The guests looked at him with sympathy but could do nothing. Before leaving, each wished him a peaceful resolution to the situation. Adrian somehow made it through to the end. Everything felt like a blur. Returning home, he collapsed on the bed and fell asleep. The next morning, his first thought was to write to Angela, but he remembered her words and decided not to disturb her. However, Adrian was deeply unsettled. He couldn't find peace, not knowing what to do. "We should be on the plane now. A whole month in New Zealand awaited us," Adrian thought bitterly. He couldn't understand why everything had turned out this way. "Is our story doomed to a sad end?" he thought in despair. Angela neither wrote nor called him that day or the next. Adrian also took no steps. After a week of mutual silence, the young man couldn't stand it any longer and sent her a bouquet of flowers. In the note, he wrote that he loved and awaited her. Angela didn't respond. A month passed. Adrian still couldn't find solace from his sadness and longing for Angela. He tried to return to his usual life, but it was difficult. Each day was filled with nostalgia for the lost happiness. Adrian was ready to give anything to relive those joyful moments he had spent with Angela. Angela didn't reach out. Adrian immersed himself in work, trying to lose himself in tasks and projects. He often stayed late at his computer, but thoughts of Angela never left him. How is she? Does she miss me as much as I miss her? He wondered. Another couple of months passed. Despite his attempts to return to normal life, Adrian felt emptiness and loneliness. He realized that his love for Angela was too strong to simply forget her. Every morning and every evening, Adrian prayed for another chance. And fate heard him. One evening, Adrian decided to take a walk in the park where he and Angela often spent time together. He walked along familiar paths, recalling happy moments alone with his beloved, when suddenly he saw her. Angela was sitting on the very bench where they had first kissed, lost in her thoughts. "Hello," Adrian said softly, approaching. Angela startled and looked up. Her heart ached with tenderness and pain. "Hello," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "May I sit down?" Adrian asked. Of course, Angela nodded. The young man sat down beside her, and they gazed at each other for a long time, realizing how much they had missed one another. "I didn't expect to see you here," Angela broke the silence. "Did you wish you had?" Adrian asked hopefully. Angela nodded again. They sat together and talked for a long time. Initially, their conversation was cautious and tense, but gradually they began to open up to each other. "I can't stop thinking about you," Adrian confessed. "I missed you every single day we were apart." Angela sniffled. "I missed you too, Adrian," she whispered quietly. The young man took her hand. "Let's try again. We can overcome all the difficulties together. I'm ready to fight for our love." Angela looked into his eyes. "I'm ready to try again too. We can start with a clean slate and leave the past behind." They embraced tightly, and Adrian kissed Angela. For a moment, it felt like they had returned to the past. "This time I won't let circumstances come between us," Adrian thought firmly to himself. This moment marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. Adrian understood that if he wanted to achieve full understanding with Angela, he needed to speak with her father and resolve the issues between them. He asked Angela for her father's number and suggested they meet to talk. That weekend, Adrian and Angela traveled to the town where her parents now lived. The train sped past fields of blooming sunflowers, and Adrian felt a sense of peace. Almost all worries were behind them, and beside him was his Angela, who once again looked at him with love and tenderness. Adrian took her hand and closed his eyes. "I wish it could always be like this," he thought. Angela rested her head on his shoulder, and they both dozed off, lulled by the rhythmic clacking of the wheels. By evening, the train arrived at its destination, and Adrian and Angela disembarked. Her parents were already waiting for them. They rushed to their daughter, whom they hadn't seen for several months, and embraced her. They still looked at Adrian with caution and mistrust. This didn't bother him, as he was determined to show Angela's parents that he was a decent, worthy, and honest man. They reached her parents' home in the old family car. The mansion where Angela's parents lived was not new, but it was quite large. It had 2 floors, and the young couple settled into a spacious room with a wide balcony on the upper floor. After unpacking their things, they went downstairs to the bright living room and sat at the table, which Angela's parents had already set for lunch. "Mom loves to cook," Angela confessed to Adrian. "And she does it like a true professional." "I don't doubt that for a moment," Adrian replied, and Angela's mother blushed. All 4 enjoyed a pleasant lunch, after which the ladies went to the kitchen to bring out chocolate cake and coffee. Adrian realized it was time to have an important conversation with Angela's father. "Mr. Ramirez, I'd like to talk to you about what happened." The elderly man nodded, fully understanding the topic of their conversation, and suggested that Adrian step into the garden. There, he led him to a beautiful white gazebo and pointed to one of the wooden benches. He himself sat down opposite Adrian and prepared to listen attentively. The young businessman gathered his thoughts and began. "Mr. Ramirez, I understand that my actions created competition between our companies. What happened afterward caused you pain and disrupted the order of your life. But I truly had no idea. If I had known that my actions would harm someone, I would have handled the situation differently. Unfortunately, no one can go back in time to fix things. However, I ask you not to judge me for what happened. Yes, my actions affected not just you, but your family and, most importantly, your daughter. But I love her more than anything. My only wish is to make her happy. I ask you to trust me and not hold any grudges against me. Give me a chance to show you who I really am." Mr. Ramirez listened to Adrian but did not respond immediately. He remained silent for quite a while, then finally said, "If you truly love each other, then I will not stand in the way of your relationship. Moreover, when it comes to business, you are not at fault. You did what you thought was right. You pursued your dream and advanced your business. That is commendable." Adrian nodded gratefully. "Thank you for being so understanding." Mr. Ramirez extended his hand to Adrian. "Let's put the past behind us and see how our relationship develops in the future." Adrian shook Angela's father's hand and smiled. "Agreed," he replied. They returned to the living room, where the ladies were already waiting. The table was adorned with chocolate cake and other desserts. Adrian took his place next to Angela and felt very good. Everything seemed to fall into place, and he had no more worries. Angela and Adrian's arrival marked an important step toward reconciliation and the restoration of friendly and respectful relations between their families. This was felt by everyone. When Angela and Adrian went out into the garden after lunch, the young woman leaned against her husband and thanked him for everything he had done for her. Adrian smiled in response and kissed Angela. They walked through the garden for a long time, feeling a sense of harmony and joy. From then on, the young couple began a new, happy chapter of their life together. They decided to support each other in all their endeavors and build a future together. Their love grew even stronger because of the trials they had faced. Each day was filled with joy and happiness from being together again. Adrian and Angela's story is an example of how powerful true feelings can be, capable of overcoming any obstacles. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed the story, please support the video by liking it and leaving a comment. Thank you very much.